We spend our lives admiring them. We track their production numbers, memorize their specs. For most of us, we can only dream of even seeing one in person. But in the eyes of international law, a $4 million hypercar is no different than a crate of counterfeit sneakers. If the paperwork is wrong, if the taxes are unpaid, or if the VIN has been tampered with, that masterpiece becomes a prohibited item. Welcome to a side of the automotive world that most collectors try to ignore. This isn't about exclusive auctions or private runways. This is about the cold, industrial graveyards where multi-million-dollar dreams go to die. Across the globe, customs agencies are sending a brutal message: no amount of wealth can place you above the law. In this file, we are looking at the most heartbreaking footage ever captured by car enthusiasts, from limited edition McLarens to one-of-a-kind Ferraris, all seized and crushed by customs. You don't want to miss the wreckage at number 1, because it involves a car so rare there are only 6 left in existence. Our first stop is the Philippines, the world capital of public car executions. In 2021 and 2022, the Bureau of Customs made international headlines by doing the unthinkable. They lined up over $100 million worth of luxury vehicles and drove a bulldozer over them in a live broadcast. The star of this tragedy? A brand new McLaren 620R. This wasn't just any McLaren, it was one of only 350 units produced worldwide. The importer had declared it as used auto parts to avoid the country's massive import duties, which can reach up to 50% of the car's value. But here's the secret. Unlike other countries that auction seized assets to make money, the Philippine government refuses. Why? Because they believe that if they auction the car, the original smuggler or their associates could simply buy it back at a lower price. So to ensure no one benefits from the crime, they turn a $300,000 hypercar into $400 worth of scrap metal in under 60 seconds. Beside that McLaren sat a Bentley Flying Spur, a Porsche 911, and several Mercedes AMGs, all reduced to twisted aluminum and shattered glass. Just recently, the FBI and U.S. Customs agents closed a file on one of the rarest Mercedes-Benz vehicles in history. As part of a massive international drug trafficking investigation involving a high-profile kingpin, authorities seized a 2002 Mercedes-Benz CLK-GTR. For those who don't know, this is essentially a Le Mans race car for the street. Only 26 were ever made, and their market value has recently soared to over $13 million. While many seized cars in the U.S. eventually make it to government auctions like Apple auctioneering, this specific car was caught in a legal web of civil forfeiture. If the government can prove the car was purchased entirely with ill-gotten gains, they have the right to keep it. But if the car was modified or imported under a show or display exemption that was then violated, it faces the ultimate penalty: the crusher. Seeing a CLK GTR behind a chain-link fence in a police impound lot is a haunting reminder that even the most legendary engineering can't hide a dark history. We've seen the public spectacles and the high-profile drug busts, but as we move into Section 2, we're going to look at a Ferrari F40 that was caught in a billion-dollar Ponzi scheme, and a collection of Paganis and Bugattis currently gathering dust in a Las Vegas impound lot that may never see the light of day again. The wreckage is only getting more expensive. Stick around. For enthusiasts in the United States, there is no greater villain than the 25-year rule. Under the Imported Vehicle Safety Compliance Act, any car not originally built for the U.S. market must be at least 25 years old to be legally imported. If you try to bring one in a day early, Customs has the legal right to seize it, and more often than not, they choose to crush it. Perhaps the most famous victim of this rule is the Nissan Skyline GTR R34. For years, importers tried to sneak these Godzillas into the country by dismantling them and shipping them as parts, or by falsifying VIN numbers to make them look like older R32 models. In several heartbreaking videos released by the CBP, we've seen pristine Bayside blue R34s cars worth upwards of $200,000 today being picked up by a giant mechanical claw and dropped into a shredder. They weren't crushed because they were dangerous. They were crushed to serve as a deterrent. It is a multi-million-dollar warning that the U.S. government doesn't care how much a car is worth if the paperwork isn't perfect. Sometimes the cars aren't the problem, the owners are. Enter the case of DC Solar, a company that turned out to be a massive billion-dollar Ponzi scheme. When the FBI raided the owner's property, they didn't just find documents, they found a collection of 149 luxury cars, including a 1991 Ferrari F40. Now, typically, the U.S. Marshals will auction these cars to pay back the victims, But the F40 is a special case. Because of its extreme value, nearly $3 million, and its complex history of being a Frankenstein rebuilt by Gas Monkey Garage, it was kept in a secret government warehouse for years. While this specific F40 escaped the crusher and was eventually sold at auction, many other one-off exotics and similar fraud cases aren't so lucky. If a car is found to have been used specifically to transport illegal goods, or if its ownership cannot be legally cleared, the government often deems it a non-salvageable asset. In those cases, a car that represents the pinnacle of Italian engineering ends up in a scrap heap. In cities like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, there is a different kind of wreckage. These are the ghost collections, hundreds of Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and even rare Enzos and Jaguar XJ220s abandoned in airport parking lots. Under strict local laws, unpaid debt is a criminal offense. When the financial crisis hit, many ultra-wealthy expats fled the country to avoid jail, leaving their multi-million-dollar hypercars behind. For years, these cars sit under a thick layer of desert sand, their engines seized and their interiors ruined by the 120-degree heat. But here's the twist. Once the government finally seizes them, many of these cars are too damaged to be sold. Instead of a glorious restoration, they are often sent to scrap auctions where they are sold for parts, or in some cases, simply crushed to clear space for the next wave of abandoned luxury. Seeing a car that once cost $500,000 being treated like a piece of litter is perhaps the ultimate sign of the volatility of the hypercar world. We've looked at the legal traps and the abandoned ghosts, but coming up in Section 3, we're going to witness the single most expensive seizure in history, a collection belonging to a dictator's son that included a Lamborghini Veneno Roadster and a Koenigsegg 11. If there is one name that strikes fear into the heart of hypercar collectors, it's Teodorin Obiang. As the vice president of Equatorial Guinea and son of the country's long-standing president, Teodorin lived a life of unimaginable excess. But in 2016, his luck ran out in a Swiss airport. Swiss authorities investigating a massive money laundering and corruption case discovered a fleet of 25 hypercars stashed in a cargo bay. We aren't talking about standard Ferraris, we're talking about the absolute peak of automotive exclusivity. The collection included a Koenigsegg 111 of only 7 in the world, and a white and cream Lamborghini Veneno Roadster, one of just 9 ever built. In a rare move, instead of crushing them, the Swiss government put them up for auction in 2019. The result was historic. The Veneno Roadster alone sold for $8.4 million, while the Koenigsegg fetched over $4.6 million. The total haul? A staggering $27 million equivalent to over $31 million in 2026 value. While this seems like a win, it raises a dark question. Where does that money actually go? While promised for social programs in Africa, the lack of transparency often means the secret of these seized funds is just as murky as the crimes that led to the seizure. This is the question. Every car lover asks, why not just sell them? If a car is worth $5 million, why destroy it when that money could fund hospitals or schools? The answer is a cold, bureaucratic cocktail of deterrence and liability. In countries like the Philippines or Brazil, the government believes that auctioning a smuggled car creates a loophole. If a smuggler brings in a car illegally and it gets seized, they could theoretically send a shell company to the public auction and buy the car back for a fraction of its value, effectively laundering the car into a legal status. By crushing it, the government removes that incentive entirely. Then, there is the issue of safety compliance. Many of these hypercars were built for specific markets. If a car doesn't meet the safety or emission standards of the country it was smuggled into, the government views it as a defective product. To sell it would mean the state is liable if the car crashes or fails. To the law, it is safer to turn a Ferrari into a cube of metal than to risk the legal headache of a non-conforming vehicle. Our final case for this section is a file that is still making headlines today. Just weeks ago, federal authorities in the U.S. completed the seizure of a 2002 Mercedes-Benz CLK-GTR Roadster. This car is a unicorn, one of only 6 in existence. Valued at a staggering $13 million, It was allegedly purchased as part of a massive money laundering scheme linked to a Canadian drug kingpin. For months, rumors swirled that the car was actually being sourced for the rapper Drake, but before it could reach its destination, the FBI stepped in. Because this car is so rare and so valuable, it has been moved to a high-security, undisclosed location. It currently sits in a legal limbo. If the courts decide it's a proceed of crime, it could be sold. But if it was imported under false pretenses or violates show or display regulations, this $13 million masterpiece could face the same hydraulic fate as a common Camry. It is the most valuable vehicle currently in the crosshairs of federal law enforcement. We've seen the millions raised for charity and the millions lost to the crusher, but we haven't reached the end of the file yet. Coming up in our final section, the car that was caught in a literal war zone and the $5 million Lamborghini that was found hidden inside a shipping container full of old mattresses. And finally, we'll reveal the one car that actually managed to escape the crusher in a dramatic last-minute legal battle. The registry concludes next. Sometimes, the way these cars are hidden is more expensive than the car itself. In a recent seizure that left customs agents baffled, a Lamborghini Aventador SVJ, a car worth nearly $1 million, was found during a routine inspection of a shipping container declared as household furniture. When agents opened the heavy steel doors, all they saw were hundreds of old, stained mattresses stacked to the ceiling. But as they began to clear the trash, they realized the mattresses were actually a meticulously built cocoon. Hidden in the center of the container, perfectly preserved and untouched by the surrounding grime, was the SVJ. The owner had spent thousands on the elaborate cover-up to smuggle the car into a country with 100% luxury import taxes. But the secret was out. Because the car was hidden inside undeclared cargo, it was classified as contraband. Instead of hitting the track, the mattress Lambo was hauled away to a government lot. In the world of high-stakes smuggling, a $1 million car can be undone by a single thermal scan. If you ever find yourself in an unassuming warehouse district on the outskirts of Las Vegas, you might be standing near the most valuable locked file in America. Just recently, authorities uncovered a $50 million fraud scheme that led to the seizure of 7 ultra-rare hypercars. We aren't talking about common exotics. This collection includes 2 Paganis, a Huayra R, and a Huayra Roadster, 2 Bugattis, a Chiron Persport, and a Supersport, and a 1 of 10 Apollo Intensa Emozione. These cars are currently gathering dust in a high-security impound lot. But here's the tragedy. Because they are evidence in a global scam involving tens of millions of dollars, they are stuck in a bureaucratic coma. Between endless trials and red tape, these cars may never see the tarmac again, like the legendary abandoned cellar in Czechia that has been sitting in a field since 2011 because of a permanent investigation. These Vegas hypercars are proof that the most lethal car killer isn't a crusher. It's paperwork. But we can't end this file without a glimmer of hope. Meet the GM EV1. Back in the early 2000s, General Motors famously reclaimed and crushed almost every single EV1 ever made, effectively trying to erase the car from history. It was a corporate execution, but one specific unit, VIN number 212, managed to escape. Through a series of legal twists and a last-minute court order that stopped the crusher mid-cycle, this car was saved. It spent years forgotten in an Atlanta tow pound, covered in dust and leaves, until just a few months ago in late 2025. In a massive legal victory for automotive history, a judge ordered it to be sold. It fetched over $100,000 at a random impound auction, the first EV1 to ever be legally owned by a civilian. It serves as a reminder that even when the government or a giant corporation wants a car gone, the registry never truly forgets. From the $13 million Mercedes in an FBI lockup to the Lamborghinis hidden under mattresses, these cars remind us that the line between a masterpiece and a piece of scrap metal is often just a single signature. Subscribe to join the registry. We'll see you in the next file.